Welcome, it's Jeremy Allen Gould. I'm coming to you today to confirm between God and of man that in fact, the rumors that you have all heard are true. I started this podcast because I freaking love music. I was privileged enough to book amazing artists and bands in the past, and I was lucky enough to stay in touch with many of them to this day. This is a place to hear their stories. Thank you so much for riding along on this journey, and I hope you enjoy what you hear. With that said, the rumors are definitely true. Thank you for tuning into this latest episode of the Rumors Are True podcast. My name is Jeremy, and today I welcome Rob Withem. You know Rob from the band Fine China, the Foxglove Hunt, as well as his latest band, Red Strat. Rob and I talk about his intro into music and all the records and bands he's played in over the past 20 plus years. Awesome conversation as usual. Really stoked on this episode. So I hope you enjoy this latest episode with Rob Withem. Hey Rob, thanks so much for coming on my podcast. I really appreciate your time, man.
Absolutely, you're welcome.
So tell me what's going on in your life currently? What's going on in your world?
Well, I own a construction company, so a lot of my time is spent running that thing. I do I have a company, we do commercial residential construction. I've done it for many, many years, but so I'm doing right now. That's got employees and getting jobs done and building stuff for people. So
very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, that's it.
Let's talk a little bit about growing up for you. Musical influences, bands, records, kind of. Let's talk about how music kind of came into your life at a younger age.
Yeah. But yeah, I grew up in a really music kind of oriented home. Always lots of music going on. My mom was a professional piano player and taught piano in our home, and lots of extended family. Everybody was kind of into music and played a lot of music, so I just kind of grew up in it. It was just sort of expected, that's what you would do, you'd play music. So so they got me going on a violin when I was 3. My grandfather had been a professional violinist, and so I think it was kind of here you go, the first grandson gets to continue on in the legacy or whatever. So yeah, they started me on that, and I did that for years and years, when I was 3 to probably when I was in high school.
Wow.
So yeah, I just was immersed in just doing tons of music, and but I really got into it when I got a guitar when I was probably 13 or 14. One Christmas, my mom bought me a random guitar for Christmas, and I was just messing with it, and it was a whole different world from classical, playing classical violin.
Sure.
It was oh, I can like kind of write music. And I was kind of getting into music on my own, like listening to the radio and like whatever was on the radio. I was like figuring out how to play songs. And like then I kind of got the bug at that point for like having an instrument I could like write songs on. That's kind of when it grabbed me. So
very cool. What were some of those records that really kind of pushed you in that direction? Maybe what were some of the ones that you gravitated to?
Well, like when I first got into like rock and roll, it was like, you know, so what would that have been, like early 90s, you know? So it was totally the grunge era. So, you know, everybody was listening to all that stuff. You know, Nirvana was huge, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, like all those guitar bands. Like that's when I started playing guitar. And so that's like what everybody, you know, me and my buddy who like both wanted to play guitar were just like into that stuff. Smashing Pumpkins, like that was around the time Science Dream came out. I just was like obsessed with that record, like loved it. And that was like the kind of guitar I was like trying to figure out, is like how to play like lead organ and all that kind of trippy, you know, crazy kind of noisy ambient rock guitar. So I was really into that stuff. And then, you know, that was a period of time where like if you were in the church, there was like a really vibrant like Christian music scene as well. And so like my buddy and I, you know, were kind of into all these bands. We're starting to get into like sort of Christian bands that were doing the same stuff. And so we got into like Starflyer and like Tooth and Nail bands and Joy Electric, like in their early days. Yeah. And that's when we kind of I got really into it. And like, you know, it was like, that's what I want to do. Like I want to play in a band like that and kind of be part of, you know, what was going on.
That's awesome. Did you play in any bands before Fine China, or like anything that maybe in high school or after high school that you did?
Nothing really officially, no. I mean, like any kid who's like in high school learning to play guitar, you kind of like jam with different people and stuff.
Sure.
No, I never really was in a group until we started Fine China, which was like in 1996, probably. Like the year I graduated from high school is when I kind of like.
That's when I graduated.
It's literally the only. That's when you graduated. All right, there you go. So, yeah, so like, yeah, it's literally the only, you know, band I've ever really had was that band. For good or ill, it's been it my whole life.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, let's talk about Fine China and the beginning of that band. You said 1996 is approximately the year that you guys started. How did it come to, and maybe talk about the beginning of that band?
Sure. Yeah, so I had there was a couple of other members originally with me. So it was me. We had a guy playing some drums named Danny, and we had a girl on bass named Melissa. We were kind of like, I think Melissa I went to church with, you know, she was like kind of part of our youth group or whatever. And then Danny was like her friend, and he played drums. And so we just like, you know, I wanted to I was writing songs and wanted to find some people to like play them with. And it was just the classic thing. Like we would, Danny's house, like, you know, load into his room on a Saturday and just like play songs. And I was just figuring out, you know, how to write music. And we played some like, you know, Battle of the Bands and that kind of stuff. That was like always happening. I feel like in the 90s, that was like every high school, you know, always had like a Battle of the Bands and everybody wanted to do it. So we just kind of started doing that. We played some shows. That was just a really early iteration of Fine China. Pretty, you know, but I don't even remember what songs we were playing. It was probably kind of surfy, like Weezer or the Rentals or something. That was kind of what I was into back in those days. So it probably sounded something like that, like a really poor version of the Rentals or something.
When did you start to feel like you guys had some traction, maybe starting to write some songs that, you know, you kind of were confident in?
Yeah, that's a good question. Gosh, it's been so long. Yeah, like we had probably around the time that we like kind of met Jeff Cloud and some of the guys who were involved with Velvet Blue Music back in those days. Like we were, Fine China was kind of still going. We had our bass player, Greg Markup, who's still in the band, had this idea of like, he was kind of entrepreneurial, you know, and he's like, why don't I start booking shows in Phoenix, you know, with the bands that we like. And then he's like, and then I'll like book us to play with them. So we could kind of like, you know, get our feet wet, be playing with groups that we like and like meet some people. And so that was kind of how we really sort of got more serious about it. There was Jeff, do you know Jeff Cloud with Velvet Blue?
I don't know him, but we have a ton of mutual friends. Yeah.
So back in those days, kind of the early days of his label, which was kind of like, I don't know, it was sort of like the indie version of Tooth and Nail. And, you know, he had this thing where he would like, was called the Blue Star Army. So he had like people in like every city that he would kind of work with to try to like promote shows for bands he was working with, which in those days would have been like Starflyer, Joy Electric, other bands that were doing stuff with him. So my bass player, Greg Markov, was like kind of involved with that, and he would like bring out, you know, those bands, and then we would kind of play shows with them. So that was probably in like 1997, and that's when we started to get some traction. Like we met some of those guys, and you know, just like kind of off to the races and doing some of the early recordings with Cloud on Velvet Blue Music and stuff. So it happened kind of within a year of starting, you know.
Were you guys, I know you said you were kind of playing with the bands, were you getting to open for any other like national acts or any like secular, I guess, if you will?
Not in the early days, no. Like when we first started out, we were just playing like in the Christian scene. I mean, that was just kind of how we got started. And there was a lot of shows all the time, like in Phoenix, like you could play, you know, there was tons of venues, churches, other kind of venues that were doing shows like kind of in the Christian indie rock scene. So that was all we did in the early days, just because that's what we knew, you know.
Sure.
Like the only people we would play, you know, bar shows once in a while, but it wasn't until later, you know, maybe after our second record on Tooth and Nail came out, that we really started doing like more kind of regular tours at clubs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the early days was like Christian rock for us.
I get it. I totally get it. I grew up in that world myself, so I definitely can relate to it. You kind of are headed towards where I was going next. Tooth and Nail, obviously, you know, between playing with the bands and getting to know a lot of the other artists, is that kind of how that came to fruition? Yeah.
So we were working on a full-length album, which would have been our first full-length to come out on Velvet Blue Music. This is probably like 1998 now, maybe, or 99. And Ronnie Martin from Joy Electric was producing it. And we just kind of threw that session. That session wasn't going well. There were some things we weren't super happy with. And at that same time, Ronnie was doing, he was running Plastic Music, which was a subsidiary of Tooth and Nail. And he had the idea. He was like, what if we kind of tried to reboot this thing and see if Tooth and Nail would want to put it out and kind of get a little bit better budget to do better recording. And so he kind of helped nudge that along. And we were excited about that because it would have, you know, just gave us a wider distribution and kind of like would have pushed us up a little bit. So that's kind of how it happened. So I guess he pitched it to whoever, you know, at Tooth and Nail, and they were excited about it. So it kind of came out. It wasn't just a Plastic Music. It was like a Plastic Music Tooth and Nail release, the first kind of When the World Sings. So that's kind of how that happened. It was kind of through Ronnie and just his work with Tooth and Nail at that time. Yeah. And we sort of felt bad about it because we loved Cloud, and, you know, Velvet Blue was where we got our start. He had just been like so faithful to us and stuff. But he was just like super cool about it, and, you know, wanted us to succeed. So yeah, it worked out.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned When the World Sings. Let's talk about that record. I think it's fantastic. I remember hearing it when I first, you know, when you put it out. It was definitely like nothing you'd heard on Tooth and Nail before at the time. I feel like, you know, super dancey, super poppy. Let's talk about that record. Maybe your thoughts and memories from that time of the recording, and let's go from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a weird record to listen to, like in retrospect, because it doesn't really sound like what our band sounded like at the time. We kind of wanted to have a really dance pop kind of album, even though if you were to like heard us play live at that time, we didn't really super sound like that. We were kind of like, so it's kind of like a weird concept album. And then also like the songs for it had been kind of hodgepodge together from a few years. And so all in all, like it was a great experience for us as a young band, because we were like recording at a really cool studio. It's called the Green Room, where like all the bands that we loved had recorded there, so we thought that was cool. And we, you know, for a young band who really nobody knew about, it was a lot offered to us in terms of like just resources and making a cool record. And I think we loved it. It was fun to make. It was like just our first experience in like a real nice studio, you know, with like a little bit of a budget. And it felt, you know, when everybody's like 20, that feels pretty cool.
Yeah, I bet. That's awesome.
You're like, this is like, we're just on the upstream.
We've made it.
Yeah, exactly. So I have good memories about it. You know, just getting started, getting it put out on Tooth and Nail, you know, everything we kind of dreamed about was sort of happening. So we kind of felt like, oh, this is awesome.
Sure. How do you, looking back on it, how do you feel about that record? And maybe what's your favorite song from that record?
I like it. I feel like it's a weird record. There's just a lot of different sounds, and the production is kind of inconsistent across it, but it's cool. Like it's really cool. I probably would say like a song like Give Us Trouble on that record really was the most reflective of what our band actually sounded like, you know?
Yeah.
At that time. And that song, even in the few shows that we play today, like we'll often play that because it still kind of feels just like, yeah, this is us, you know, this is kind of what we sound like.
That's awesome.
Yeah, those kind of songs, you know, probably the more just like band songs on there are the ones like if I were to listen to, I probably wouldn't cringe as much. I think a lot of the songs are really good. It was just, yeah, the production.
No, I get it. It's your first foray, you know, if you will, and you know, you mature as a band as you go. Right. Touring wise, what'd you do after the record came out? And you know, you obviously hit the road running pretty quickly.
Yeah, we didn't do as much touring as other groups. You know, on Tooth and Nail. Tooth and Nail really wanted their bands to tour a lot. Well, obviously, you know, that was
sure.
They pushed that. The problem for us was that, you know, I had gotten married really young, so I had like, you know, a family and like had to pay bills, and like I couldn't just be gone making zero money for like 6 months out of the year.
Yeah.
So I had just decided, you know, I wasn't going to be gone a ton. So we had really limited parameters we had created for touring. We would do like, you know, a week here, a week there, a lot of weekend gigs as much as we could, but we really didn't like tour, you know, like we could have, you know,
sure.
For a lot of different reasons. But we did a lot of tours, you know, in the community of bands we were a part of. We toured a lot with Starflyer, a ton with Joy Electric. I mean, us three bands just did a ton of little stints together during that time period.
Yeah.
We'd go over to you know, Southern California always had Christian rock shows happening every week. So we would do a lot of like drive out on Friday night, play a show, drive back on Saturday to Phoenix kind of thing. We just did that over and over again.
I bet. That's awesome. Really cool. So after When the World Sings comes out, how long after you start working on the second record, You Make Me Hate Music, which I want to be honest with you, that is the greatest title for a record. I absolutely think it's beyond brilliant. Like, I love it. And I love the record in general, but.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we started working on that, I think, in like 2002. So, you know, a couple of years after When the World Sings came out. I think I probably started to work on the songs pretty soon after When the World Sings. And then it just takes time to figure out what you're going to do next. Tooth and Nail, you know, was kind of excited about the band just because we got When the World Sings, weirdly, like it didn't hardly sell any copies, but it did get kind of a lot of press with the outlets that Tooth and Nail kind of liked. So they were sort of like, hey, we have this weird kind of cool band that we like. So yeah, they were excited to do the second one. I was trying to remember. I think there was like an offer to go. Tooth and Nail was running a studio up in Seattle at the time. What was it called? The Compound or something? I think right. They kind of wanted us to go up there and do it with him. We had, you know, Jason Martin from Starflyer, who's my buddy, like he and I had talked about just doing it with him kind of at his house, like just to kind of keep it, you know, in the family and kind of for low key. And he was producing a lot of bands at the time. So that's what we ended up deciding to do, just to kind of like keep it a little more on the DL, and it just sounded more fun, to be honest. So yeah, we ended up doing it. He had like a little garage under his condo at the time where he did recording and had a little studio. So we did the whole record down there with him. And we were trying to do what we sort of wish we had done with When the World Sings, which is make it sound like the band. So it very much sounds exactly like what we sounded like when we played live. We wanted just to sound like a rock band from the early 80s or something, you know, like the Rental or the Replacements or something like that. Yeah. That's like what we were trying to do. So it's pretty lo-fi. The record, it's a pretty lo-fi record. Like it doesn't sound great, but it sounds exactly how we wanted it to. It's kind of got like a weird grittiness to it that we dig.
I think it's fantastic. I definitely think it's a departure, obviously, from the first record, but I love everything about it. Like I said, I've never actually asked this on the podcast, but what was the influence of that title of the record? I mean, I'm like floored by it. I know it sounds goofy, but I show everyone that's the record because I just think it hit me at a certain time, and I didn't know if it was just sarcasm or like I just was curious.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Probably, so we would like play Cornerstone every year back in those days. I think we played Cornerstone. Cornerstone Music was like the big Christian music festival.
Yeah.
I think we played it in like 1999, and we played it in 2001, 2002. I think we played it 4 years in a row. And I always hated going to that thing. Like I just literally could not stand anything about it. It was just like miserable. And we had kind of a reactionary thing going on with our band, which is really, when you're a young kind of punky band like we are, it's usually more born out of your own arrogance and overestimation of how cool you are, which it probably was for us. But I would leave those festivals and just be like, dude, I hate this. Like, I hate everything about this. I hate all of these bands. Like, this is just like awful. And so it was kind of that. Those are honestly, like, I would trace it back to a couple Cornerstone experiences of just being like, I don't like any of this. I don't know what these bands are doing. And I just want to do the literal opposite of that. And that's probably where it came out of.
Yeah, I figured as much. And I think if you get it, you get it. And you don't, you don't. It's kind of one of those things. So I just, I've always just been fond of it for sure.
It's kind of like, it was kind of questioning just the legitimacy of our own art, like, what are we really doing here? Why is, you're like, totally. It's really not that important. So,
so what's your favorite song from that record?
Wow. Let me think about that. Probably Forget the Experts is probably my favorite one on there. Song. I think it's like a little later in the record. Yeah, I always really liked that one. It just was kind of, it's the same kind of song that I've been writing for 20-some years. It's just kind of like one of those jams.
Yeah.
But, I always like.
Very cool. Tour, did you just still the spot dates still after that touring wise? Maybe just, when bands come through, or maybe like the LA trip and whatnot?
Yeah, we did a lot of that. We did some more like week-long things, kind of, I think we would tour like to and from Cornerstone, so we'd always take a couple weeks and go like play shows on the way there, on the way back. Did some East Coast stuff. It's probably the most we ever played was like around that time. We had a little bit bigger band, so we had a guy playing live guitars for us that we brought on. So we were actually like a 5-piece for a bit. So yeah, we played a lot of shows. I mean, more shows than we ever had in that era. All around. I don't know, we had like a booking company for a while that was like tooth and nail that hooked us up, but that was really pressing to like get us some better gigs. And so yeah, we were playing a lot for that period of time. Yeah.
Was the Tooth and Nail, I know you said they were kind of stoked on the press from the first record. How did they feel about the second record?
Well, I think they liked the record a lot when it came out. That was like a little bit of a strange time period where Tooth and Nail, like in like 2003 and 2004, kind of purged a bunch of groups. So, and I think it was probably the same time frame where their catalog or a lot of they got bought out by EMI. And so part of that, like Tooth and Nail had like their big sellers, like their A-list kind of bands, and they had a lot of weird kind of funky bands like us that they liked but that were not selling records like at all. Pretty much all of us got wiped out during that time.
Yeah.
They were just kind of like changing gears and really focusing on the ones that were like making money, which I don't blame them.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of what was my next question, leaving Tooth and Nail. I mean, obviously, it was probably a good thing for you, and then at the same time, I'm sure that kind of was a bummer at the same time. But is that kind of, did you begin to look into Commonwealth Media? Is that something you did, correct?
After, I don't really exactly remember, like after we got off Tooth and Nail, we weren't like, we saw it coming. It wasn't like, oh gosh, anymore. We sort of, I think, assumed we would just kind of disband at that point, but I just kept writing songs, and like I had a good friend in Phoenix at the time who was running this label Commonwealth, and like had a good amount of money behind it, and was like he was doing it right. Like he just had a few bands, but he was like really putting the right kind of money into publicity and like getting some good placements and stuff like that. He was really like excited to want to work with us. So yeah, I think, what was that, like 2005? So another couple of years went by, but I had a bunch of songs ready to go, and that was like our best kind of label experience, to be honest, just because it was so small, but there was a lot of resources involved. So we did a really nice like month-long session at a nice studio.
That's awesome. That's right.
There was a lot of attention kind of put into what we were doing, and it was cool. It was fun.
Sweet. Well, let's talk about the Jaws of Life record. Obviously, It sounds like you had a lot more time to work on it. Looking back, let's talk about that record and your thoughts on it, and maybe some memories from that.
Yeah. So the Jaws of Life was like the first album that we did where we didn't have like somebody else kind of producing. It was self-produced kind of by me and the band, which was cool. We had never really done that before. So it was like a little more like wide open, and we had a lot of time. We weren't like crunched at all. So we were at a little studio. It's a guy that have continued to work with named Bob Hogue. He has a studio called Flying Blanket.
Oh yeah.
So it was the first time we worked with him, and we just totally like gelled really well. He's local, so we would just be able to go home at night, and it was just like a nice situation to be like at home, being able to do a record. There was like, it just felt like creatively it was our best experience in the studio, because we were able to really like, take our time and record stuff. Yeah, how we wanted to, and kind of be, involved with trying to get the end product that we wanted as the band. I'm trying to think of other memories. It's been so long. I don't have a lot of memories about it.
What's your favorite song from that record?
Let me think about that for a minute. I probably like The Cells Divide is maybe one of my favorite ones on. Again, that's like the few shows that we play, we'll always pull that guy out. I like that one. I like a lot of the songs on that record. It's very guitar forward kind of album with lots of different guitars and different sounds, and we had a good time making that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that record comes out, you're probably playing the typical spot date shows, going, doing whatnot. Is family life starting to creep in more where you're not as able to play live as much?
Yeah, we didn't do much touring at all during that time period. We did like a lot of California stuff, but we played a lot locally in Phoenix at that time. That was probably the time period where there was the most attention to us, like from the local scene in Phoenix, because there was kind of a lot of stuff going on at that time. So we played we tried to be really consistent and play like at least like once or twice a month somewhere in town. Yeah. So that was a little bit different. I think at the time that we made the Jaws of Life, I think I had 2 kids. I have 6 kids now.
Okay.
But I had 2 of the 6 then. Yeah. So if everything is busy,
I bet.
Work was busy. It was, everything was just getting to be more. So after that record was kind of done, that was when we sort of like put the thing to bed. We played one show. It was like Phoenix has this like newspaper called the Phoenix New Times. It's kind of like the indie newspaper, and they do a music festival every year. So we had got invited to play that, I think in like 05 or 06. And after that show, we were just kind of like, I think we're done. It was just a weird moment, like very just like nonchalant, just like, okay, this is it. So we just kind of literally like closed it up and like didn't do anything else for like 13 years after that. Strange. It's kind of like, ended.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's we'll talk about the later records, but I just kind of wanted to talk about your time with the Foxglove Hunt and maybe the 2 records you put out, Stop Heartbeat and Built My Fortress. Right. Like, obviously, your past, being able to work with these musicians. Like, just talk about how that kind of came together.
That was really, Foxglove was just what I kind of changed my energies towards after Fine China disbanded in like 2006. So, I mean, I still wanted to write songs. I mean, I still wanted to keep doing something. And I think what happened was I was playing like drums for Ronnie occasionally in Joy Electric. Like we would do like a lot of fly out gigs, And so I was kind of doing that with him on and off at the time. And that's where we kind of hatched the idea for Foxglove Hunt, was like probably on some drive somewhere. Yeah. It was basically like, let's make this a project that is easy for both of us, like where we each get to do the thing we want to do. So for Ronnie, that was like, he wanted to not have to worry about writing the songs, but just do the production. Like, I'll just, Ronnie is basically like, you give me demos of songs and I'll make them, I'll do the production and the keyboards and synthesizers, and then you put the vocals on. So we're each kind of doing a very distinct part of it that we both liked and was easy for us. So that was kind of the idea behind it. And the same label, Commonwealth, that put out the last Fine China, was really excited to put it out. And so that made that easy. We already had a label that wanted to do it. And that came together super fast. Like, we just had a bunch of songs all right away. And like, recorded it and came out. And then really, like, as we were playing with Joy Electric, I was still doing a lot of like little fly out weekends. We would just like switch, and then we would do like Foxglove. So like Foxglove would play, he like on drums, I'm singing, playing guitar, and then like Joy Electric would come, and we would just like flip flop, which is people probably felt kind of gypped by that, but that we did that a lot for a little time period.
That's awesome. Yeah. Looking back on those two records, what are your thoughts on them, and you know, maybe some memories from that?
Mm-hmm. Those were, I honestly have not listened to those things in a long time. Like, I probably should go back and listen to them. I really liked them. I felt like the songs were exactly what I wanted. I was really happy at the time with like where I was at kind of songwriting wise. Like, they were very, very tightly written, kind of crafted songs that were short and sweet. And like, part of our idea on that record was like that every song, it was like if you got a greatest hits of the Pet Shop Boys or something. Like every song is cool. Like, we wanted to have it be sort of like that, but it was obviously, you know, not as great as the Pet Shop Boys, but where it was like no filler. It was like every song could be like a single. So yeah, I thought it was really great. I think it has like a real sound to it that's cool, and yeah, I really like that record. Build My Fortress was kind of like not really a full record. So what that was, there was this Japanese label that wanted to put out Stop Heartbeat, but they also wanted to have some like exclusive content. So we recorded like a couple extra songs. So there's like 2 brand new songs on Build My Fortress. And then as part of that, we just like did some other random versions of songs we already had to make it kind of an EP for like the US market.
Yeah.
So that's what it was.
I know you mentioned Commonwealth was on board. Was there any other labels at the time interested? Was it like Velvet Blue or Tooth and Nail or anything like that?
No, we never really talked to those guys. We had a weird little, like it happens so often in music, you know, you'll have somebody interested that you get all excited about, and then it usually ends up amounting to nothing, and you kind of get used to that. But yeah, we had some random guy, I haven't thought about this for a long time, some random guy was from Sony Records, some like subsidiary of Sony out of Brooklyn, was like really stoked on it. And we had a bunch of meetings with him, and like we almost kind of thought the record was going to get bought. It was that time period, like when these kind of electro bands like the Killers and like some other groups, really like, it was really the thing. And I think this guy thought this album could kind of be part of that like retro revival kind of thing. And then the guy, it just ended up not amounting to anything. like it's just so many bands. But yeah, so we had a little bit of interest there, but it was really just us continuing to do, you know, what we do. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, so time goes by and you start to get the itch, maybe to do a new Fine China record. Maybe talk about how you guys decided to come back, and let's talk about Not Thrilled, which is my favorite record of 2018. It is an absolutely brilliant masterpiece in my mind. I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. I think it's an incredible record.
Oh, man,
and yeah, man, let's talk about you getting back together and start to talk about that record.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I think I'm trying to think what the impetus was for it. We had moved into a new house because we had a lot of kids by that point. We needed a bigger house. We bought a house that actually had like room for me to have a studio. We had many years we lived in this really tiny historic home. We were just like shoved in there, and like if I was gonna do anything, you know, songwriting wise, I'd have to like be at the kitchen table, and this was not conducive. So we had this new house, and I finally had a spot to like have a studio, which is actually where I'm at right now. It's like it's like a guest house in the back. And so I was like, all right, I'll just kind of set this up. Like, I've got a space now, you know, it's like cool. And then I just started to like write stuff again. I got like, you know, a little studio setup going, and that's just kind of, it wasn't me, you know, even thinking about doing another Fine China album. It was just purely just starting to write and record stuff again. And songs started happening, and I was like just compiling the bits and pieces. And then at some point it dawned on me that like I actually had a record potentially to put out. And I had still been in touch with the other guys in the band, you know, over the years and stuff, and they were pretty excited. I didn't know if they would be, it had been so long, but they were pretty excited to be a part of it. And it just kind of like happened, just the right time.
Yeah. Did you hit up Jeff Cloud, obviously, for Velvet Blue to get involved?
I did. Yeah. I really actually wanted him, as I started to think about, you know, I actually had a bunch of really nice demos at one point, and I was like, I'm going to send this to Cloud and see if he would like to put it out. I thought that would be for me, the ideal, just because it's where we started. And, Cloud had always been such a good friend to the band. And it seemed very low stakes, but safe and comfortable and like enjoyable, which is the phase of life I was in with music, later in life, just wanting it to be not stressful whatsoever. And so, he was right off the bat, like really excited about it. And so that kind of gave us a goal to work for it in terms of finishing it once we knew, okay, this is actually going to come out. Then I had to kind of scramble and get it done. That's kind of how it happened.
So let's talk about how you feel about the record, I guess I should say. And it sounds like it's more self-deprecating, not thrilled. But as it just sounds like you're on to the next record, same mindset. Let's talk about the record, and I love it. Like I said, it's so good. And what are your favorite songs on that?
Thank you. I was time period of that album was my dad had just passed away.
I'm sorry.
In the what was it, winter of 2015, and I had kind of just started to write it. Everything that goes along with that kind of changes your life, when you lose a parent. Things get weird, and it loosens up stuff and makes you think about a lot of different things. So I think for me, part of it was just do that. If I want to do some music, I better get on it, because you don't know if you're just going to come home and die one day. Literally, it was kind of like that for me. I need to get on this. And I think production wise, having my own studio and just having tons of time now where I could just be working, that was really freeing for me. I didn't have to take off work like I had to in the past. And this month, it was okay, I can take a long time and really build this thing. So I think that served the album pretty well, being able to do that. It's more layered and well produced than anything else we had done before, just because I had so much time to kind of go back through it and just take time. It's like anything that you make creatively, I think time is your friend. I had lots of time to go through it. I was just in a good spot. I had a lot of ideas over a lot of years of stuff that I hadn't been able to use, and then kind of got to put everything in there. And I was just in the right mindset. And I'm a melancholy person, so my music's always going to have that kind of sadness. Probably, just stuff going on in my life with our family and my dad, and it just kind of, it made for a kind of a moment, a record that was kind of sad, but the right kind of,
How do you feel about it looking back?
I like it. I'm, in terms of all the records we put out, it's one I'm the most happy with. Every part of it came out pretty much how I wanted it to, and it came together really well, in my opinion. And I had no idea, if anybody was going to like it or whatever, and that really wasn't even what our focus was at all. It was nice to know it was going to come out, but I was more freed than I had been in the past from really caring about people's expectations.
Absolutely.
Which is nice.
What was the reception like for it? I remember when I first started it, I was floored, but it's how was the press with it? How was that, I guess?
Yeah, we didn't get a ton of press. I think NPR, this guy, Lars.
Oh, yeah.
What's his name? He was nice. He was really nice and did a new music thing on it. That kind of kicked off the release, so that was cool. He was kind of, I guess, some kind of fan from back in the day, kind of understood the history of the and stuff. So there was a lot of that kind of stuff that was cool, and I feel everybody that got a copy of it, we got a lot of really nice emails and letters and texts, and people seemed to really enjoy it a lot. So that was fun.
What's your favorite song from that record?
That's a great question. I really like the song "Mindful" on there.
Oh yeah, that's great.
So I haven't heard a lot of feedback from people on that one. It's kind of a slow jam, but I really dig that one.
That's awesome. So have you got to play any shows? Obviously, since you put this record out, on occasion, maybe a Phoenix show, LA show type deal. Yes. So we kind of what got sort of rewinding a little bit. What kind of got the band back together prior to Not Thrilled was, which I forgot to mention, was that we did
10-year reunion show for the release of Jaws of Life in 2015.
Okay.
So that was kind of like the band had gotten back together just for that one show. It was a great show. Phoenix, like a big sold out thing because they were re-releasing Jaws of Life like on vinyl for 10 years. So that actually, the band had kind of got together, and I had already started to sort of write songs. And I think that was part of the equation of like getting back together for Not Thrilled was that. Where was I going with that? What was your question? Sorry.
Oh, I was just asking, I forgot. No, I was basically just asking what your favorite song, sorry. What your favorite song?
Oh, no, we talked about that. What was it, though? Reception?
Oh, you said you went back, that brought you guys back together, was playing that show.
Oh, so you asked about shows, yeah. So,
sorry.
Yeah, so we had done that, and then we done that one show, and then I think when Not Thrilled came out, we did like a release show, and then shortly after that, I had a friend who was like a mutual friend with David Shelzel from this band, The Ocean Blue. You know who the Ocean Blue is?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were like one of our favorite bands, like late 80s, early 90s. They were sort of like the American version of all the British like melodic pop bands that we liked. They had been pretty big in America like in those days. So they were like starting to play again. They had a new record, and my mutual friend connected us, and they were at Dave Shelzel from Ocean Blue was asking if I could help connect them with a show in Phoenix. And through that, we ended up playing that show with them and kind of hit it off really good with their band. So we did some little like mini touring with them around.
That's cool.
I think almost every show we've played in the last 3 years has been with them.
That's cool.
Mostly just because it's always a really good show, because the shows are always sold out and like really fun. Because when you're old, it's not really fun to play crummy shows. There's like people.
Dude, I totally get it.
It's like why we do it. So we have one show this year, and it's in November, and it's with them in Phoenix.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the Trees at Night single. I absolutely love that song as well. Why did you decide to just do the one? And is there any future music in the future, possibly?
Yeah. Trees at Night was just kind of the next step. I had a couple songs, and Cloud and I had been talking about doing like a single basically of some kind, and like on vinyl, but like an old school kind of like full 12-inch single. So we had actually released Trees at Night like before COVID, right before COVID broke. We released.
I thought so.
It's that one song like digitally, and then during COVID, I ended up kind of having a little bit bigger idea for it. And well, we were always going to release it as a 12-inch single, but I think anyway, when COVID happened, it kind of got backburnered. But anyway, we ended up, I had a couple of other super random like instrumental songs. Like I had been working on this whole other idea, these kind of like new agey, like journey to the whatever kind of journey jams. Not Journey the band, like a journey. So we really, so that was kind of the idea for the Trees at Night. It was like you've got side A that's like Fine China song, and then you've got the second track that's like this weird nature sound thing, and then side B was going to be this super long, 15-minute jam that just takes you like somewhere. So I was pretty stoked just because it was weird and like it just was fun. It just was really fun, different kind of composition to work on for me. So so we did that, and I love that. And I had a bunch of other compositions that I was working on at that same time, like instrumental stuff, like using a kind of a really specific sound palette. And so we actually have an EP that's done. It's more like a mini album. It's like 40 minutes long, so it's kind of like an actual album, but it's like we're just in test pressing phase right now. So we'll hopefully get our test presses for the vinyl back in another week or two. And
awesome.
Probably, it's called Eyes in the Water. It'll probably come out sometime this fall, just depending on the timeline for the vinyl. So it's got like 3 super long random instrumentals, and it's got 3 like real Fine China songs as well. And it's kind of a concept thing, the way it's all put together. So,
that's exciting. Exciting.
Yeah,
that's
so
awesome.
That's in the works. Come on.
Very cool. Very cool. I know you said you have that show in November. Any other stuff on the horizon, possibly next year at all, or?
No shows. No shows. Shows are hard to get ready for, and like a lot of work. So we don't have a lot of margin to prep for those things. Maybe we'll do one this year. Who knows?
Well, let's talk about Red Strat. Awesome. somehow got to hear the record. A friend of a friend, I'll say.
Okay.
Love it. It's fantastic.
Nice.
Let's talk about how that came together, and then let's talk about that record, and then what's the future for that record.
Yeah, Red Strat is so it's me and Jason Martin from Starflyer. We were kind of the like spearhead guys of the band. Kind of wrote most of the music and kind of like got it going. And then we've got Jason's son Charlie plays drums, Steve Dale who plays bass for Jason and Starflyer's bass band, and Tim Tabor who is the old Prayer Chain singer.
Oh yeah.
Singer. Yeah. So Jason is, all those guys live right around, Jason in LA or Huntington Beach area. So he's who got Tim Tabor involved with it. I think we kind of hatched the idea for it at like a Barrett Jackson car auction or something. Jason and I are kind of into like old trucks and stuff. And we were at we went to this car auction in Scottsdale like a few years ago. We just were talking, and like, he and I both have a real love for just like really crummy, like Allman Brothers, like beer rock, like we just kind of bluesy guitar stuff. Like we both don't do that a lot in our normal bands, but kind of love that stuff. And so we were just like, it'd just be really fun to have a band that we didn't really care about, but that was just super fun. And you could play like some lead guitar, and it's just like, it's like what you would do with your buddies, like, on Saturday in the garage or whatever. So that was kind of the concept, just something super fun, super simple. We had kind of demos batting back and forth for a while, and then we did a couple different recording sessions and recorded everything, and then we mixed the record out here at Flying Blanket. So it's been done for quite some time. I think what's going to happen with it is it's going to be a very limited physical media only release on vinyl and cassette only.
Okay.
So we want to make it as hard as possible for people to hear this thing. So I think that's what's going to happen. We have that kind of in the works. We just wanted something different. I don't know. When you get to be old, it's just like, it's something that's not the normal like avenues of distribution. Sounded kind of fun. So we did a couple shows last year that were both really fun. We did one in LA, and we did a Phoenix show at a bar out here that I'm a partner in, and they were both really, really great and fun. Yeah. That's the whole idea of the band. It's just that it's like just fun,
That's really rad. I like I said, I think the record's fantastic. It's super gnarly, and that's what I like about it. Awesome. So you said it was coming out limited. Is it just you gonna do it yourselves, obviously, or?
We have a label that I've worked with out here in Phoenix. That's like a vinyl kind of label, and I think they're gonna be the one that end up putting it out. Yeah. Cool. That's the plan, at least. We're in the kind of early stages on that, but I think that's what it's looking like. Probably come out
That's exciting. That's exciting. Yeah. Well, that's cool. That sounds like you've got your finger in a lot of different musical avenues, and anything else maybe on the horizon musically for you, or do you think that's enough?
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably end up doing another, hopefully, Lord willing, another Fine China actual like full length probably be next year. I'm probably like 2/3 of the way done with another like a whole other actual like full record. So hopefully maybe sometime next year that will get finished up and get released for LP5. So we'll see.
Looking back on your career, what are you most proud of? What's the record that you're most proud of, and maybe the song you're most proud of?
Well, I don't really know what that means to be proud of. I guess not thrilled. I'm probably the most just happy with, the end product. It just, it was what I wanted to have happen, and it happened pretty close to that, which doesn't always happen with records.
Sure.
Actually. I liked being able to really, kind of fully direct that thing on my own. That was nice. I like that one. I don't know. Yeah, it's always a mixed bag. Every record has stuff that kind of came out more like you wanted, and then stuff that didn't quite, come out how you wanted, but that's just part of it. And I'm a guy that wants to get stuff done and get it out there and move on to the next thing. So for me, it's about like finishing it up. What if we're good or ill? Like get the songs done, record them, release them, and then get your next. And then anything you weren't happy with, like try to deal with it on the next one.
I get it. Rob, thank you so much for your time, man. This has been awesome. I had a lot of questions for you in the past, and really stoked I got a chance to ask you. I'm really excited for the new record, and man, I just really appreciate your time, and I wish you luck in the future.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Awesome, man. Well, hopefully we'll talk soon.
All right, man. Thank you.
All right, buddy.
Thank you to the listener for tuning in to this latest episode. Really appreciate the support. Add me on Instagram and Facebook if you'd like, at the Rumors Are True Cast. Like and subscribe if you like. You know the drill. Thank you so much to Rob Withem for your time. Amazing conversation. It was so cool to talk to someone that's influenced me. Those Fine China records are incredible, and everything else he's done as well. So I really hope you enjoyed this latest episode. Got some amazing artists on the horizon in different capacities. So thank you again for tuning in. And man, nostalgia, it's a heck of a drug.